It was an ordinary day in the bustling city when Elric, a young alchemist known for his skill with potions and medicines, was approached by a peculiar group of strangers. These weren't noble travelers or scholars in search of knowledge. No, they were a ragtag band of mercenaries and thieves. Their leader, a scarred man named Garrick, who radiated danger and desperation. Garrick had heard of an ancient dragon rumored to possess magic that could heal any wound or illness. To most, dragons were long extinct, only present in myths and legends, but Garrick believed otherwise. "We need your knowledge," Garrick said with a grin that made Elric uneasy. "This dragon, it's real, and we're gonna find it." Elric hesitated. He had always been fascinated by the old stories of dragons, but to join a band of criminals in search of one, it seemed foolish. But then Garrick revealed the true reason they wanted Elric. They needed him to understand the ancient dragon's magic, how to harness it, how to use it. The idea was intriguing, and despite his reservations, Elric's curiosity got the better of him. He agreed to join their quest, though he didn't trust the bandits' intentions. Days passed and the group made their way to a remote mountain range, a rumored home of the last dragon. It was a treacherous journey filled with steep cliffs and dangerous weather, but they pressed on, determined to uncover the truth. Along the way, Elric learned more about his companions. None of them seemed interested in the dragon's healing power for noble reasons. Greed, control, and power were what they sought. As they climbed higher, the air grew thinner and tensions mounted. Elric began to question whether he had made a mistake. Still, he couldn't help but wonder if the stories were true. Could a dragon really heal any wound? And if so, what had become of such creatures? It was during the climb that everything changed. A misstep on a loose rock sent Elric tumbling down into a hidden cavern, separating him from the group. As if he fell through earth, the darkness swallowed him whole, and when he landed, he found himself alone, deep underground in a world forgotten by time. Elric groaned in pain as he stood, dusting off his robes. He was inside a vast underground cavern, dimly lit by glowing crystals embedded in the walls. The air felt thick with magic, and an eerie stillness hung over the place. As he adjusted to the dim light, his breath caught in his throat. There, at the far end of the cavern, lay a creature of unimaginable size and beauty. A dragon. Its scales shimmering with an ethereal glow, slumbered peacefully amidst a pile of bones and ancient treasures. Elric's heart raced. He had found it, the last dragon. Quietly, he approached, his eyes wide with wonder. The creature was even more magnificent than he had ever imagined, his massive form exuding power even in his sleep. His hand reached out instinctively, but before he could touch the dragon, its ethereal blue eyes opened, fixing him with an intense, knowing gaze. Elric froze, expecting the worst. He had heard stories of dragons burning villages, leaving nothing but ash in their wake. But instead of attacking, the dragon simply stared at him. There was no malice in its gaze, only curiosity. The two locked eyes for a long moment, and Elric, despite the overwhelming fear he felt, stood his ground. He wasn't going to run. If this was the end, he would meet it with courage. To his surprise, the dragon did not lash out. Instead, it slowly lifted its head, studying him. Elric realized with a start that the creature had spared him. Gathering his courage, Elric spoke, his voice shaking slightly. Are you the dragon that can heal?" He glanced around the cavern, noticing ancient markings on the walls. They depicted scenes of dragons and humans living in harmony, of a great betrayal that had shattered their bond. One human, imbued with the power of dragons, had turned on them, leading to the creature's near extinction. The dragon's tail flickered toward the markings, as if answering his question. Elric understood. The dragon could heal, but it had paid a terrible price for trusting humans. Before Elric could ask more, a sound echoed from the entrance of the cavern. The bandits had found him. Garrick and his band of mercenaries burst into the cavern, their eyes lighting up with greed as they saw the dragon. "Well, it's true," Garrick sneered. "The beast, it's real." Elric stood between them and the dragon, his mind racing. "You can't do this," he pleaded. "The dragon isn't some tool for your greed. It won't give you its power willingly." But Garrick's men had no interest in reason. They drew their weapons, advancing toward the dragon. "We don't need his permission," Garrick growled. "We'll take what we need." Elric's heart sank. He had feared this from the start. The bandits didn't care about the dragon's history. or the ancient bond between humans and dragons. They only wanted to bleed the creature dry, to steal its magic and use it for its own purpose. Desperate, Elric tried to reason with them. If you harm the dragon, you'll doom us all. Its magic isn't something you can control. Only someone worthy can wield it. But his words fell on deaf ears. Garrick raised his sword, preparing to strike the dragon. Elric had to make a choice. He couldn't let them destroy the creature. With a sudden burst of courage, he lunged toward, knocking Garrick off balance. The other bandits attacked, and in the chaos, Elric felt a sharp pain as if one of them stabbed him in the side. He collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath, his vision blurring. But as he lay there, bleeding, the dragon stirred. It had seen enough. The dragon's roar echoed through the cavern, shaking the very ground. The bandits stumbled back in fear as the massive creature rose to its full height, its wings spreading wide, casting a shadow over them all. But instead of attacking, the dragon's blue eyes softened as it looked down at Elric, who was gasping for air, clutching his wound. With a slow, deliberate movement, the dragon lowered its head, gently touching Elric's wound with its snout. A warm, radiant light enveloped him, and the pain began to fade. Elric could feel the dragon's ancient magic flowing through him, knitting his flesh back together, restoring his strength. He blinked, dazed as the wound closed completely, leaving no scar. But the dragon wasn't done. It gazed deeply into Elric's eyes, and in that moment, he understood. The dragon was transferring its power to him, choosing him to carry on its legacy. The magic that had once flowed through dragons will now flow through him. The dragon let out a final gentle breath, and its massive form began to fade, turning to dust before Elric's eyes. It had sacrificed itself to save him, to pass on its power. The bandits, realizing what had happened, fled in terror, knowing they had lost their chance at the dragon's magic. Elric stood in the now quiet cavern, his heart heavy with both loss and newfound purpose. The dragon was gone, but its magic lived on within him. He could feel it coursing through his veins, a power unlike anything he had ever known. The ability to heal, to bring life where there was only death. It was both a gift and a burden. As he left the mountain, Elric knew that his life had changed forever. He couldn't return to the quiet life of an alchemist in his village. He had a greater role to play now, a duty to carry out the dragon's will. He would travel the land, healing the sick, mending the wounded, and most importantly, restoring the bond between humans and the last remnants of dragonkind. His journey was just beginning, and though he walked it alone, the spirit of the dragon was always with him, guiding his steps. Elric, the last alchemist of dragons, would wander the earth, healing and protecting, seeking to rebuild the bridge between man and myth. And perhaps one day, dragons and humans could live in harmony once more.